Nothing says eternal love like an empty anniversary dinner table and a lipstick-stained napkin at Applebee's. I sat there for 47 minutes watching my chicken parmesan congeal into something that resembled roadkill, while my wife Leia texted furiously under the table. Her manicured fingers danced across her phone screen with the kind of passion she hadn't shown me in years. "Sorry, honey," she said without looking up, her blonde hair falling perfectly around her face in that calculated way she'd perfected. "Work crisis. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. Leia worked in HR at Meridian Financial, where crisis management usually involved deciding whether the office Christmas party should have a cash bar. The only crisis here was her complete inability to lie convincingly. "Of course," I said, cutting into my chicken with surgical precision. "What kind of crisis requires texting at 9:30 on a Friday night?" She finally looked up, her green eyes flashing with that familiar mixture of guilt and irritation. "Intimate harassment complaint. Very sensitive. I can't really discuss it." Intimate harassment, right? The only thing being harassed tonight was my intelligence. My phone buzzed against my leg. A text from my brother Adam. "She's incredible, Nick. You're a lucky man." Lucky? That was one way to put it. I've been married to Leia Forrester for 12 years, and for the last 6 months, I'd been married to a stranger. She worked late every Tuesday and Thursday. She'd started going to yoga classes that apparently required full makeup and Victoria's Secret lingerie. She'd bought new perfume, the expensive kind that came in bottles smaller than shot glasses. But it was the little things that really gave her away. The way she tilted her phone away from me when texting, the way she'd started closing the bathroom door when she never had before, the way she'd stopped complaining about Adam. My brother Adam had always been Leia's least favorite person in my family. She called him arrogant, self-absorbed, and overly familiar. She'd roll her eyes whenever he showed up at family gatherings, and she'd find excuses to leave the room when he started talking about his latest conquest or business deal. Then, about 6 months ago, the complaint stopped. Suddenly, Adam was not so bad, and actually pretty funny when you get to know him. She even suggested inviting him to our anniversary dinner tonight. He declined, of course. Probably had other plans. "I need to step outside and make a call," Leia said, already standing. "This situation is getting complicated." I watched her walk toward the exit, her heels clicking against the tile floor. Through the restaurant's front window, I saw her pull out her phone and dial. She paced back and forth, gesturing animatedly, her face flushed with excitement. That's when I saw the black BMW pull into the parking lot. Adam's car. He parked 3 spaces away from the window, just far enough to avoid the restaurant's lighting, but close enough for me to recognize his profile. Leia walked toward the car, still talking on her phone. She opened the passenger door and slid inside. Through the windshield, I could see them talking, their heads close together. Then Adam reached over and touched her face. I sat there for another 10 minutes, finishing my anniversary dinner alone while my wife made out with my brother in the parking lot. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd chosen Applebee's because it was where Leia and I had our first date 13 years ago. She'd ordered the same chicken parmesan, and I'd been so nervous I'd spilled marinara sauce on my shirt. Tonight, I wasn't nervous at all. When Leia finally came back inside, her lipstick was gone and her hair was slightly used. She slid into her seat with a satisfied smile that she tried to hide behind concern. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just work stuff. You know how demanding people can be." She picked up her fork and took a bite of cold pasta. "Sorry I ruined our anniversary dinner." "You didn't ruin anything," I said, pulling a small wrapped box from my jacket pocket. "Actually, I have something for you." Her eyes lit up with genuine surprise. "Nick, you shouldn't have. We agreed no gifts this year." "I know, but this is special. I've been working on it for months." She unwrapped the box carefully, her excitement building. Inside was a small flash drive with a red ribbon tied around it. "What is it?" she asked, holding it up to the light. "Your anniversary present. Everything you need to know about what happens next. She frowned, confusion replacing excitement. I don't understand. I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Lala, sweetheart. I know about Adam. The color drained from her face so quickly, I thought she might faint. The flash drive slipped from her fingers and clattered onto her plate. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. Tuesday at the Marriott downtown. Thursday evening strategy sessions at his apartment. The new lingerie that I never get to see. Should I continue? She stared at me with the expression of someone who just realized they were standing in quicksand. Nick, I can explain. No need, it's all on the drive. 6 months of audio recordings, thanks to that old phone you thought you'd lost. The one I've been keeping in your car. I gestured toward the parking lot, including tonight's conversation about how stupid your husband is and how much better Adam is in bed. Leia's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. You've been spying on me. I've been documenting the end of our marriage. There's a difference. She reached across the table and grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. Nick, please, it's not what you think. Adam and we were just having an affair. Yes, I know. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What do you mean? I stood up and dropped a $50 bill on the table. I mean, Leia, that this is just the beginning. You and Adam think you're so much smarter than me, the dumb construction worker who never went to college. Well, congratulations. You're about to find out just how smart this dumb construction worker can be. I walked toward the exit, leaving her sitting there with the flash drive and the ruins of our anniversary dinner. As I reached the door, I turned back. Oh, and Leia, you might want to check your social media accounts when you get home, and your bank account, and maybe call a lawyer. I stepped into the cool October air and took a deep breath. Phase 1 was complete. My workshop had become mission control over the past 3 months. What used to be a cluttered garage full of power tools and half-finished projects was now the nerve center of the most important construction job of my life. Dismantling my wife's world piece by piece. I'd always been good with my hands, good at building things. Turns out I was even better at taking them apart. The pegboard above my workbench held a different kind of tool collection. Printed emails, bank statements, phone records, photographs, everything organized with the same precision I used to frame a house. Every piece of evidence labeled, dated, and cross-referenced. My best friend, Marty Kowalski, sat on an overturned bucket, drinking beer and studying my handiwork like it was the Syene Chapel. Jesus, Nick, he said, shaking his head. This is either the most brilliant thing I've ever seen or the craziest. I can't decide which. Marty ran a towing company and had been a cop for 15 years before he got tired of dealing with other people's problems. He had the kind of face that made people confess to crimes they didn't commit, and the kind of loyalty that made him perfect for what I had in mind. It's not crazy if it works, I said, updating a timeline on the whiteboard I'd mounted next to my tool chest. And it's going to work, because I've thought of everything. Walk me through it again. I pointed to a photograph of Adam's apartment building. Adam thinks he's untouchable because he's got money and connections. He works at Meridian Financial too, in the investment division. Makes 3 times what I make and never lets me forget it. Cocky bastard. Exactly, and that's his weakness. He's so arrogant he doesn't think anyone would dare come after him, especially not his blue-collar brother. I moved to another section of the board where I'd mapped out Leia's daily routine. Leia thinks she's smarter than me because she went to college and I didn't. She thinks I'm too stupid to figure out what she's doing and too weak to do anything about it, even if I did. And that's her weakness, right? They both underestimate me. They see what they want to see. The simple construction worker who's grateful to have a wife like her and a brother like him. Marty finished his beer and crushed the can. So, what's the plan? I'd been waiting for that question. I'd been perfecting the answer for weeks. Phase 1 was the revelation. Let them know I know, but make them think that's all I've got. They'll panic for a day or two, then they'll start to feel safe again. They'll think I'm going to file for divorce and disappear quietly. And Phase 2. Phase 2 is where we start having some fun. I pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. Adam's got a secret he thinks nobody knows about. He's been skimming money from client accounts, not enough to trigger the automatic fraud detection, but enough to fund his lifestyle. The expensive car, the downtown apartment, the trips to Vegas. Marty's eyes widened. How the hell did you find that out? Remember when I helped him move last year? He left his laptop open while we were carrying boxes. I saw some spreadsheets that didn't look right, so I started paying attention. You mean you started investigating? I mean, I started using my brain instead of my back for once. I spread the documents across my workbench. Bank records, credit card statements, investment portfolios. Amazing what you can find when people trust you enough to leave you alone in their apartment. This is some serious stuff, Nick. If he's really embezzling, he is. And tomorrow morning, an anonymous tip is going to find its way to the compliance department at Meridian Financial, along with copies of these documents. Marty whistled low. That'll end his career. That's just the beginning. Laya works in HR. Remember, when the investigation starts, she's going to be right in the middle of it. Guilt by association. And once word gets out that she's having an affair with the guy who's stealing from their clients, she's finished too. Exactly. But we're not stopping there. I moved to the final section of my evidence board, the part I was most proud of. Phase 3 is where we get creative. See, Adam's got a girlfriend. Had her for about 2 months now. Sweet girl named Jessica, who thinks she's his one and only. Wait, he's cheating on his girlfriend with your wife and cheating on my wife with his girlfriend. Adam's always been an overachiever. Marty laughed despite himself. What a piece of work. Jessica's a paralegal at Morris & Price & Associates. You know, the law firm that handles personal injury cases. She's also got a very active Instagram account and a lot of friends who love drama. I think I see where this is going. Tomorrow night, Jessica's going to receive an anonymous package. Photos of Adam and Leia together, copies of their text messages, maybe even some audio from their romantic evenings. She's going to be heartbroken, angry, and looking for revenge. And she's got the legal connections to make Adam's life very complicated. Exactly. While he's dealing with the embezzlement investigation at work, he's going to be dealing with a very angry paralegal at home, and Laya is going to be caught right in the middle. Marty stood up and walked over to the evidence board, studying the timeline I'd created. This is elaborate, Nick. You sure you want to go this far? They made their choice 6 months ago. I'm just making sure they live with the consequences. What about the kids? That was the question I'd been dreading. Emma was 10 and Sophie was 8. They worshipped their mother and thought Uncle Adam was the coolest guy in the world. This was going to destroy their image of both of them. The kids will be fine, I said, though I wasn't entirely convinced. They'll be better off knowing the truth about what kind of people their mother and uncle really are. And what about you? What happens when all this is over? I looked around my workshop at the evidence of months of planning and preparation. Then I start over. Clean slate. New life without Leia. Without any of them. Marty nodded slowly. All right. I'm in. What do you need me to do? Remember that contact you have at the phone company? The one who helped you track down that hit-and-run driver last year? Sally Morrison. What about her? I need complete phone records for Adam and Leia. Calls, texts, data usage, everything from the last 6 months. That's going to cost you. I've got money saved up. Turns out when your wife is having an affair, you don't spend much on date nights and anniversary presents. Anything else? I handed him a slip of paper with an address written on it. I need you to keep an eye on Adam's apartment tomorrow night when Jessica shows up to confront him. I want pictures. Lots of pictures. You really think she'll go there? I know she will. I've been watching her social media for weeks. She's the type who confronts problems head on. When she finds out about Adam and Leah, she's going to want answers. Marty pocketed the address and headed for the door. You know there's no going back after this, right? Once you pull this trigger, it's over. All of it. It was already over, I said. I'm just making it official. After Marty left, I sat alone in my workshop, surrounded by the evidence of my wife's betrayal and the blueprint for my revenge. Tomorrow, Phase 2 would begin. By the end of the week, Adam and Leah would understand what it felt like to have their world collapse around them. I picked up the framed photo of our wedding day that I had kept on my workbench. Leah looked radiant in her white dress, smiling at the camera with genuine happiness. I looked young and naive, like I believed in fairy tales and happy endings. I dropped the photo into the trash can and turned off the lights. The call came at 7:23 a.m. on Tuesday morning. I was drinking coffee in my kitchen, watching Leah pace around the living room in her bathrobe, talking frantically on her phone with Adam. They'd been at it for 20 minutes, their voices getting higher and more panicked with each exchange. "Nick," Leah called out, her voice cracking with stress. "I need to go to work early. There's some kind of emergency." "What kind of emergency?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I can't discuss it. HR confidentiality. But it's serious." I watched her rush upstairs to get dressed, moving with the kind of urgency usually reserved for natural disasters. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Hadley from next door, watering her flowers and pretending not to eavesdrop. Mrs. Hadley had been the neighborhood information broker for 30 years, and she had radar for drama that would make the NSA jealous. 20 minutes later, Leah came downstairs wearing her most professional outfit and a layer of makeup thick enough to hide her panic. Almost. "I don't know when I'll be home," she said, grabbing her keys from the counter. "This could take all day." "Good luck," I said, raising my coffee mug in a mock toast. "I hope everything works out." She paused at the door, studying my face for any sign that I knew what was happening. I kept my expression neutral, just concerned enough to seem caring, but not suspicious. After she left, I called in sick to work and settled in to enjoy the show. The first domino had fallen at exactly 6:45 a.m. when someone from Meridian Financial's compliance department had opened an anonymous email containing detailed evidence of Adam's embezzlement scheme. By 7 a.m., security had been called to escort Adam from the building, pending a full investigation. By 7:15 a.m., Leah had been summoned to an emergency meeting to discuss the HR implications of having an employee under federal investigation. By 7:30 a.m., half the office knew that Adam Forrester was in serious trouble, and the other half was trying to figure out why Leah Forrester looked like she was about to throw up. My phone rang at 9:15 a.m. "Adam, Nick, I need your help." "Good morning to you too, brother. What's wrong? You sound stressed." "There's been a misunderstanding at work. Someone's made some accusations about my accounts, and they've suspended me pending an investigation." "That sounds serious. What kind of accusations?" "Financial irregularities." "It's complete, Nick. Someone's trying to frame me." I had to admire his commitment to the lie, even when his world was crumbling around him. "Who would want to frame you?" "I don't know, but I need a lawyer, a good one. Can you lend me some money?" "How much money?" $50,000, maybe more. These corporate lawyers don't come cheap." $50,000. That was almost exactly what Adam had stolen from his clients over the past 2 years. The irony was beautiful. "Adam, I'm a construction foreman. I don't have that kind of money lying around." "You could get a loan. Use your house as collateral." "I'm good for it, Nick. You know I am." "I wish I could help, but Leah and I are having some problems right now. Money's tight." There was a long pause. "What kind of problems?" "Marriage problems. She's been acting strange lately, working late, being secretive. I think she might be having an affair. Another pause, longer this time. That's ridiculous. Leah would never. I hope you're right. But until I figure out what's going on, I can't make any major financial decisions. Nick, this is important. My career is on the line here. So is my marriage. I'm sorry, Adam. I wish I could help. I hung up and immediately called Marty. How's our boy doing? He asked, panicking. He just asked me for $50,000 for a lawyer. Did you tell him to go to hell? I told him I couldn't help because I think my wife is having an affair. Marty laughed. You're evil, Nick. I like it. What about phase 3? Tonight, Jessica should get her package around 6 p.m. I timed the delivery for when she gets home from work. And you're sure she'll go to Adam's apartment? Positive. I've been monitoring her social media for weeks. She posted about planning a romantic dinner for Adam tonight. When she finds out about Leah, she's going to want answers. I'll be in position by 7. Camera ready. Perfect. And, Marty, make sure you get good shots of their faces. I want to see the exact moment Adam realizes his life is falling apart. The rest of the day passed slowly. I spent the afternoon doing maintenance around the house, fixing a leaky faucet and touching up some paint in the hallway. Normal domestic tasks that felt surreal given what was happening across town. Leah came home at 8:30 p.m., looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was disheveled, and her hands were shaking as she poured herself a glass of wine. Rough day? I asked. You could say that. She took a long drink and stared out the kitchen window. There was a situation at work. A colleague of mine is in some serious trouble. What kind of trouble? I can't discuss it, but it's bad. Really bad. Anyone I know? She hesitated just long enough to confirm my suspicions. No, just someone from the office. My phone buzzed with a text from Marty. Holy Nick, you need to see these pictures. Jessica went nuclear. She threw a lamp at his head. I smiled and put my phone away. Well, I hope everything works out for your colleague. It won't, Leah said quietly. Some mistakes you can't come back from. That's too bad, but I'm sure he'll figure something out. People like him always land on their feet. She looked at me sharply. What do you mean, people like him? Successful people, the kind who are used to getting what they want. Success doesn't protect you from everything, Nick. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who destroy you. I nodded thoughtfully. That's very philosophical. Are we still talking about your colleague? I'm talking about life. About how quickly everything can change. Change can be good. I said sometimes you need to tear something down before you can build something better. Leah finished her wine and headed upstairs. I'm going to bed. It's been a long day. Sweet dreams. I called after her. At 11:30 p.m., my phone rang. Adam again. Nick, I need to see you tonight. It's almost midnight. Adam, what's wrong? Everything. My life is falling apart. Jessica broke up with me. Work is a nightmare, and I think someone is deliberately trying to destroy me. Why would someone want to destroy you? I don't know, but this can't be a coincidence. First, the investigation at work. Then Jessica gets these mysterious photos of me with someone else. You were cheating on Jessica. It's complicated. It always is. Where do you want to meet? The end zone. I need a drink, and I need to talk to someone I can trust. The End Zone was a dive bar on the south side of town, the kind of place where construction workers and factory employees went to forget their problems. It was also owned by Darla Morrison, who had been collecting gossip and secrets for 20 years, like some people collect stamps. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said. Thanks, Nick. I knew I could count on you. As I drove to the bar, I thought about the conversation I was about to have. Adam was desperate, scared, and looking for someone to blame for his problems. He had no idea that someone was sitting right across from him. The second domino was about to fall. The end zone looked exactly like what it was, a place where people went to drink away their problems and pretend tomorrow wouldn't come. The neon beer signs cast everything in shades of red and blue, and the jukebox in the corner was playing something mournful about lost love and broken dreams. Adam was already there when I arrived, hunched over a whiskey at the far end of the bar. He looked like hell. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes had the wild look of someone who just realized they were standing on quicksand. Darla Morrison was working behind the bar, polishing glasses with the methodical precision of someone who'd been doing it for decades. She was in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd seen every kind of human drama play out in her establishment, and she had the discretion of a priest and the memory of an elephant. "Nick Forrester," she said as I approached the bar. "Haven't seen you in here for a while." "Hey, Darla, I'll take a beer, whatever's cold." She pulled a bottle from the cooler and set it in front of me. "Your brother's been here for an hour. He's had 4 whiskeys and looks like he's planning on having 4 more. I looked over at Adam, who was staring into his glass like it held the answers to all of life's mysteries. "Rough day, I guess." "Rough life, from the sound of it. He's been talking about some woman who broke his heart and some job that's going to hell." "He always was dramatic." Darla leaned closer and lowered her voice. "He also mentioned something about your wife. Said she was the only one who understood him. That got my attention. What exactly did he say about Leia?" "Nothing specific, just that she was special, different from other women. Said you were lucky to have her." I took a long drink of beer and considered my options. Adam was drunk, emotional, and in a confessional mood. This was an opportunity I couldn't waste. "I think I'll go talk to him," I said. "Be careful, Nick. He's not in a good place right now." I walked over to where Adam was sitting and took the stool next to him. Up close, he looked even worse. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands were shaking slightly, and he smelled like he'd been marinating in whiskey. "Hey, brother," I said. Darla said, "You've been here a while." He looked up at me with the expression of a drowning man who just spotted a life preserver. "Nick, thank God. I didn't know who else to call. What's going on?" "You sounded pretty upset on the phone." "My life is over. Completely over." He gestured to the bartender for another whiskey. "Someone is destroying me piece by piece, and I can't figure out who or why." "Tell me what happened." Adam launched into a rambling account of his day, starting with the investigation at work and ending with Jessica's dramatic breakup. He left out the part about sleeping with my wife, but everything else came pouring out in a flood of self-pity and paranoia. "The thing is," he said, his words slightly slurred, "whoever's doing this knows things, personal things. They knew about Jessica. They knew about the money. They knew exactly how to hurt me." "What money?" He waved his hand dismissively. "Just some accounting irregularities, nothing serious. But someone made it look worse than it was." "How much worse?" "They're saying I stole from clients. Can you believe that? Me stealing money? It's ridiculous." "Did you?" The question hung in the air between us like smoke. Adam stared at me for a long moment, his drunken brain trying to process what I'd asked. "Did I what?" "Steal money from your clients." "Of course not. I mean, not really. I borrowed some funds for short-term investments, but I always paid it back." "It's not stealing if you pay it back." "How much did you borrow?" 50, maybe 60,000. But it was always temporary, a few days a week at most. I made more money for those clients than they ever would have made on their own." I nodded like I understood. "But technically, taking client money without permission is embezzlement." "Right. Technically, maybe. But that's not how I saw it. I saw it as creative portfolio management, and now someone's made it look like theft." "Exactly. Someone who knows my business, knows my methods. Someone who's been watching me. Adam finished his whiskey and signaled for another. The alcohol was making him talkative, and I was learning more than I'd hoped. What about Jessica? How did someone get photos of you with another woman? That's the really sick part. They didn't just have photos. They had text messages, hotel receipts, even recordings of private conversations. Someone's been following me for months. Do you have any idea who? It has to be someone close to me, someone I trust, someone who has access to my apartment, my car, my personal life. He was getting closer to the truth, but not close enough. I needed to push him further. What about the other woman? Could she be involved? Adam's face darkened. No way. She's not that smart. Besides, she has as much to lose as I do. More, actually. Why more? Because she's married. If this comes out, her husband will destroy her. He's not the type to forgive and forget. Sounds like you know her husband pretty well. I do. He's a good guy, actually. Works hard, loves his family, trusts people too much. He deserves better than what she's giving him. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Adam was sitting here drunk and broken, talking about how I deserved better than my cheating wife, while having no idea he was talking to me. Maybe you should tell him, I suggested, about the affair. I mean, he has a right to know. Are you crazy? That would destroy everything. His marriage, her job, my relationship with both of them. Some secrets are better left buried. But if someone else knows about it, the secret's already out. Adam's eyes widened as the implications hit him. You're right. If whoever's doing this knows about the affair, they could use it against all of us. What would happen if it came out? Career suicide for both of us. We work at the same company, which means it's a violation of the fraternization policy. Plus, she works in HR, so there are ethics issues. And her husband... He shuddered. Her husband would take her for everything she's worth. Sounds like this other woman is in as much trouble as you are. More. At least I'm single. Well, I was until tonight. She's got kids, a house, a whole life that would fall apart. I finished my beer and stood up. I should get going. Yela's probably wondering where I am. Wait, Adam grabbed my arm. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever feel like your life isn't what you thought it would be? Like you made choices that seemed right at the time, but now you're not sure? I looked down at my brother, drunk and desperate, and completely oblivious to the fact that he was confessing to the one person who could destroy him. Every day, I said, but I've learned that you can't change the past. You can only decide what to do next. What would you do? If you were me, I'd figure out who was trying to destroy me and why. Then I'd make sure they paid for it. Adam nodded slowly. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Whoever's behind this, they picked the wrong person to mess with. I left him there, drunk and plotting revenge against his invisible enemy. While Darla watched from behind the bar with the expression of someone who just witnessed a Greek tragedy. As I drove home, I thought about the conversation and what I'd learned. Adam was more vulnerable than I'd expected, but also more dangerous. He was starting to put pieces together, even if he didn't realize it yet. It was time for Phase 4. The next morning brought chaos in the form of a phone call at 6:47 a.m. Leia's phone rang with the specific urgency that meant bad news, and she answered it with the kind of panic that meant she was expecting it. "What do you mean suspended?" she hissed into the phone, trying to keep her voice down. "I haven't done anything wrong. I lay in bed pretending to be asleep, listening to her pace around the bedroom as whoever was on the other end delivered what sounded like a death sentence. That's ridiculous. My personal relationships have nothing to do with my job performance. What evidence? I don't care what people are saying. It's none of their business. Fine, I'll be there in an hour. She hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at the phone like it had just bitten her. Then she noticed I was awake. "Work?" I asked innocently. "They want to see me in HR. There are some rumors going around and they want to address them before they get out of hand." "What kind of rumors?" "Office gossip. You know how people talk." I sat up and looked at her with what I hoped was convincing concern. "Leia, is everything okay? You've been stressed for days, and now this thing with your colleague, and now rumors about you?" "Everything's fine. It's just a misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" She sat on the edge of the bed and put her head in her hands. For a moment, I thought she might actually tell me the truth. Instead, she took a deep breath and put on her brave face. "Someone's been spreading lies about me and Adam, saying we're having an inappropriate relationship." "Adam? My brother Adam?" "It's completely false, of course, but you know how these things go. Once people start talking, the truth doesn't matter." I got out of bed and walked over to where she was sitting. "La, look at me." She looked up, and I could see the fear in her eyes. "Are you having an affair with my brother?" The question hung in the air like a live wire. She stared at me for what felt like an eternity, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to find words that would make this go away. "Nick, I just answer the question. Are you sleeping with Adam?" "It's not what you think, so that's a yes." She started crying then. Big, ugly tears that ruined her makeup and made her look younger and more vulnerable than she had in years. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It started as friendship and then it became something more, and before I knew it—" "How long?" 6 months, maybe 7. "Where?" "His apartment. Sometimes hotels. Never here. Never around the kids." "How considerate of you." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Nick, please. I know I've made a terrible mistake, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can get divorced." "Don't say that. Think about Emma and Sophie. Think about everything we've built together." "I am thinking about them. I'm thinking about how they deserve better than a mother who lies to their father and sleeps with their uncle." "It's over with Adam. As of yesterday, it's completely over. The investigation at his work, the problems with his girlfriend, all of this drama. I can't handle it anymore. I told him we were done." "How noble of you, abandoning ship when things get rough." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. "You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's fair." I walked over to my dresser and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "What's fair is that your employer knows exactly what kind of person they have working in their HR department. What's fair is that Adam's clients know where their money really went. What's fair is that everyone who's been affected by your lies finally knows the truth." Her face went white. "What is that?" "Evidence. Photos, recordings, bank statements, hotel receipts. Everything I need to make sure you and Adam get exactly what you deserve." "You've been spying on us." "I've been protecting myself and my children." "Nick, please. If you release that information, it won't just hurt Adam and me. It'll hurt Emma and Sophie too. They'll have to live with the shame of what their mother did. They'll have to live with the shame of what you chose to do." "That's on you, not me." She stood up and walked toward me, her hands outstretched like she was approaching a dangerous animal. "What do you want? Money, the house, custody of the kids? We can work something out. I want justice. I want consequences. I want you and Adam to understand what it feels like to have your world fall apart." "And then what? After you've destroyed us both, what happens next?" "Then I move on with my life without you." My phone rang, interrupting our conversation. Marty's name appeared on the screen. "I need to take this," I said. "Nick, it's happening. Jessica filed a police report last night. Harassment, stalking, theft of personal property, And get this, she's also filing a civil suit against Adam for emotional distress. What kind of theft? Apparently, he gave her some jewelry that belonged to another woman. When she found out about the affair, she realized he'd been giving her gifts that were meant for someone else. I looked over at Leia, who was listening to every word with growing horror. Jewelry that belonged to another woman. Yeah, expensive stuff. A necklace, some earrings, a bracelet. She's claiming he stole them from his other girlfriend and gave them to her. I remembered the jewelry. Leia had been wearing new pieces for months, always with vague explanations about sales and bonuses. Apparently, Adam had been playing both sides, giving Jessica Leia's gifts and giving Leia Jessica's gifts. This keeps getting better, I said. There's more. Jessica's lawyer is good, and she's pissed. She's going after Adam for fraud, theft, and breach of promise. She's also threatening to expose everything publicly if he doesn't settle. How publicly? Social media, local news, maybe even a civil suit that becomes public record. She wants to make sure everyone knows what kind of man he really is. I hung up and looked at Leia, who had gone from white to green. That was about Adam, wasn't it? His ex-girlfriend is suing him for theft, fraud, and emotional distress. Apparently, he's been giving her jewelry that belonged to you and giving you jewelry that belongs to her. Leia sat down heavily on the bed. The necklace. The one he gave me for my birthday. He said he bought it in New York. He bought it for Jessica. Then he gave her something he'd bought for you. He's been playing you both. I feel sick. You should, but not because Adam was cheating on you while he was cheating on me. You should feel sick because you threw away 12 years of marriage for a man who didn't even respect you enough to be faithful to his infidelity. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. What happens now? Now you go to work and face whatever consequences are waiting for you. You deal with the investigation, the rumors, and the fallout from your choices. And tonight, when you come home, we're going to sit down with Emma and Sophie and explain why Mommy and Daddy are getting divorced. Nick, please. This conversation is over, Isla. You made your choice 6 months ago. Now you get to live with it. She gathered her things and left for work, and I was alone in the house for the first time in days. I walked through the rooms, looking at the photos on the walls and the memories scattered throughout our home. 12 years of marriage, 2 beautiful daughters, a life that had seemed solid and permanent. All of it built on lies. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Mr. Forrester, this is Jessica Martinez. I think we should talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. When and where? Tonight, 7 p.m., the Coffee Bean on Main Street. Come alone. The final phase was about to begin. The Coffee Bean was the kind of place where soccer moms met for book clubs and college students pretended to study while scrolling through social media. It was neutral territory, public enough to be safe, but quiet enough for private conversation. Jessica Martinez was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a laptop open and a stack of legal documents beside her coffee cup. She was younger than I had expected, maybe 28, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. She looked like someone who was used to fighting battles and winning them. Mr. Forrester, she said as I approached. Call me Nick, and you're Jessica. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I sat down across from her and studied her face. She looked tired, but determined, like someone who'd spent the night planning a war. Your message was intriguing. What did you want to talk about? She closed her laptop and leaned forward. I want to talk about Adam and your wife and the fact that we've both been played by the same man. I'm listening. 3 days ago, I thought I was in love with Adam Forrester. I thought he was successful, honest, and committed to our relationship. Then, I received a package with photos and documents that showed me exactly what kind of man he really is. What kind of package? Photos of him with your wife? Text messages between them? Hotel receipts? Bank statements showing money he'd stolen from his clients? Even recordings of them talking about how stupid we both were. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was impressed. Whoever had sent Jessica that package had been very thorough. That must have been devastating. It was, but it was also enlightening. It made me realize that Adam isn't just a cheater and a liar. He's a predator. He finds vulnerable people and uses them until he gets bored or finds someone better. Vulnerable people. Your wife was vulnerable because she felt neglected in her marriage. I was vulnerable because I was new in town and didn't have many friends. He identified our weaknesses and exploited them. And now you want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. She opened a folder and pulled out several documents. I've been doing research on Adam's business practices. The embezzlement he's accused of isn't his first offense. He's been stealing from clients for years, just in smaller amounts that wouldn't trigger investigations. How do you know that? I'm a paralegal. I know how to research financial records and legal documents. I also have friends in the DA's office who've been very helpful. She spread the documents across the table. Bank statements, investment records, client complaints that had been dismissed or settled quietly. Adam Forrester has stolen over $200,000 from his clients over the past 5 years. He's also been involved in several questionable investment schemes that border on fraud. Why hasn't he been caught before now? Because he's smart about it. He never takes enough to trigger automatic fraud detection. He targets elderly clients who don't monitor their accounts closely. He uses his charm and family connections to smooth over complaints. Family connections. His uncle is a partner at the law firm that represents Meridian Financial. His cousin works in the compliance department. Adam's been protected by nepotism and corruption for years. I stared at the documents, trying to process what she was telling me. If you have all this evidence, why do you need me? Because I can't use most of it in court. Some of it was obtained through questionable means, and some of it would implicate people I don't want to hurt. People like my wife. Your wife is a victim too, Mr. Forrester. Adam manipulated her just like he manipulated me. The difference is that she made choices that hurt you and your children, while I was just naive. She's not a victim. She's a willing participant. Maybe, but she's also the mother of your children, and someone who's about to lose everything because of Adam's selfishness. Jessica pulled out another document, this one with official letterhead. This is a settlement offer from Adam's lawyer. He's willing to pay me $50,000 to keep quiet about our relationship and the theft of my jewelry. Are you going to take it? That depends on you. What do you mean? I mean that $50,000 is nothing compared to what Adam really owes to his clients, to you, to everyone he's hurt. But if we work together, we can make sure he pays for everything he's done. What are you proposing? Jessica leaned back in her chair and smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. I'm proposing that we destroy him completely and permanently. How? By using the legal system to do what it was designed to do: punish criminals and protect victims. She opened her laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a detailed timeline of Adam's criminal activities, cross-reference with legal precedents and sentencing guidelines. If we can prove that Adam has been systematically defrauding his clients, he's looking at federal charges for wire fraud, mail fraud, and money laundering. That's 10 to 20 years in prison. And how do we prove it? We need someone with access to his personal records, someone he trusts, someone who can get us the evidence we need without breaking any laws. Someone like his brother. Someone exactly like his brother. I studied the timeline on her laptop, thinking about what she was asking me to do. This is risky. If Adam finds out I'm working against him, He won't find out because we're going to be very careful and very smart about how we do this. What about Leah? What about her? If Adam goes to prison, she'll be implicated too. She could lose her job, her reputation, maybe even custody of our children. Jessica's expression softened. I know this is complicated for you, but your wife made her choices. She chose to have an affair with a criminal. She chose to lie to you and your children. Those choices have consequences. And if I help you, what do I get out of it? You get justice. You get closure. And you get the satisfaction of knowing that Adam will never hurt anyone else the way he hurt you. I closed her laptop and looked at her directly. There's something you should know about that package you received. The one with all the evidence about Adam and Leah. What about it? I sent it. She stared at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You've been planning this for months. The investigation at his work, the suspension, all of it. That was you too? Yes. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand that this isn't just about justice or closure for me. This is about revenge, pure and simple. Adam destroyed my marriage and betrayed my trust. Leah threw away 12 years of marriage for a few months of excitement. They both deserve to pay for what they've done. Jessica nodded slowly. I can respect that. In fact, I prefer it. People who want justice sometimes settle for half measures. People who want revenge don't stop until the job is finished. So, we have a deal. We have a deal. But I have one condition. What's that? When this is over, when Adam is in prison, and your wife is dealing with the consequences of her choices, you walk away. You don't gloat. You don't rub it in. You don't try to make things worse than they already are. You take care of your children, and you move on with your life. And if I don't agree to that condition, then I take the $50,000 and disappear, and you're on your own. I thought about her condition and what it meant. Walking away would mean giving up the satisfaction of watching Adam and Leah suffer for what they'd done. But it would also mean protecting Emma and Sophie from the worst of the fallout. Agreed, I said. Jessica smiled and extended her hand. Then let's destroy Adam Forrester. We shook hands, and I knew there was no going back. The final phase of my revenge was about to begin, and this time, I wouldn't be working alone. The next 3 weeks unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. Jessica and I worked together with the precision of surgeons, each move calculated to cause maximum damage while leaving no trace of our involvement. Phase 1 of our collaboration involved getting the access to Adam's apartment. This turned out to be easier than expected, since Adam was desperate for family support during his legal troubles. When I offered to help him pack up his belongings before the marshals could seize them as evidence, he practically threw the keys at me. I can't believe this is happening, he said, as we loaded boxes into my truck. 6 months ago, I had everything. Great job, beautiful girlfriend, bright future. Now I'm facing federal charges and living in a studio apartment above a pizza place. Life has a way of humbling people, I said, carrying a box of his financial records to the truck, records that Jessica would analyze later that night. Someone did this to me, Nick. Someone with a grudge and the resources to destroy my life. I just can't figure out who. Maybe it's not personal. Maybe someone just noticed the irregularities and reported them. No way. This is too coordinated, too thorough. Someone's been planning this for months. He was right, of course. But he was looking for an external enemy, when the real threat was loading his stolen evidence into a pickup truck. Phase 2 involved Jessica's connections in the DA's office. Her friend, Sarah Chen, was an ambitious prosecutor who specialized in white-collar crime, and she was very interested in building a case against someone with Adam's profile. Financial predators like your brother-in-law are exactly why I became a prosecutor, Sarah told us during a clandestine meeting at Jessica's apartment. They hide behind respectability and family connections while they steal from people who trust them. How strong is the case? Jessica asked. With the evidence Nick's provided, it's rock solid. Wire fraud, mail fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. We're looking at a minimum of 15 years in federal prison. What about accomplices? I asked. People who might have helped him or benefited from his crimes. If we can prove that someone knowingly participated in or benefited from the fraud, they could face charges too. But we'd need clear evidence of intent and knowledge. I thought about Leia's new jewelry, her expensive clothes, the weekend trips Adam had paid for. She might not have known the money was stolen, but she'd certainly enjoyed spending it. Phase 3 was the most delicate part of our plan. We needed to ensure that when Adam fell, he fell alone, without taking down innocent people or creating unnecessary collateral damage. This meant carefully controlling the flow of information and timing our revelations for maximum impact. The breakthrough came when Jessica discovered that Adam had been using client funds to pay for his affair with Leia. Hotel rooms, jewelry, expensive dinners, even a weekend trip to Napa Valley. All of it funded by money stolen from elderly retirees and young families. "This is perfect," Jessica said, showing me the paper trail she'd assembled. "It directly links the affair to the theft. No jury will have any sympathy for him after they see this." What about Leia? The evidence shows that she accepted gifts and benefits, but there's no proof she knew where the money came from. She'll face professional consequences and public humiliation, but probably not criminal charges. That's almost worse than prison. Leia's always cared more about her reputation than anything else. Then she's going to have a very difficult time in the coming months. The final phase began on a Tuesday morning when federal agents raided Adam's new apartment and Meridian Financial's offices simultaneously. The local news was there to film Adam being led away in handcuffs, and the footage made the evening broadcast on all 3 local stations. I watched the coverage from my living room while Emma and Sophie did homework at the kitchen table. They didn't know yet that the man on TV was their uncle, or that their mother was about to become the subject of intense scrutiny. Leia came home 2 hours after the news broke, looking like she'd aged 10 years in a single day. "They arrested Adam," she said, collapsing onto the couch beside me. "I saw it on the news. Federal charges, right? Wire fraud, money laundering, theft. They're saying he stole over $300,000 from clients." $300,000? That's more than they originally thought. It gets worse. They're also investigating everyone who had a personal relationship with him. They want to know if anyone else was involved, or if anyone benefited from the stolen money. "Do you think you'll be investigated?" She looked at me with eyes full of fear and guilt. "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." Why would they investigate you? Because of the affair? Because of the gifts he gave me? The trips we took? The money he spent on me? They're going to want to know if I knew where it came from. Did you? Of course not. I thought he was just successful. I thought he could afford those things. But you never asked where the money came from. Why would I ask? Rich people spend money. That's what they do. Adam wasn't rich, Leia. He made a good salary, but not enough to afford the lifestyle he was living. You should have known something was wrong. She stared at me with growing realization. You're not surprised by any of this, are you? What do you mean? The investigation? The arrest? The charges? You're acting like you expected it. I suspected something was wrong with Adam's finances. He was always flashing money around, but his salary didn't match his spending. You suspected, but you didn't warn me? Warn you about what? That your boyfriend might be a criminal? Would you have listened? She had no answer for that, because we both knew she wouldn't have. She'd been too caught up in the excitement of the affair to question where the money was coming from. My phone rang, interrupting our conversation. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. I need to take this, I said, walking into the kitchen. It's done, Jessica said. Adam's been formally charged with 12 counts of fraud and money laundering. The prosecutor is asking for 25 years. What about Leia? She's not being charged, but the FBI wants to interview her as a potential witness. She'll need a lawyer. When? Tomorrow morning. They're also freezing any assets that might be connected to the stolen money, including jewelry and other gifts. I looked back at Leah, who was sitting on the couch staring at the TV coverage of Adam's arrest. She's not going to handle this well. That's not your problem anymore, Nick. Remember our agreement? When this is over, you walk away. It's not over yet. Yes, it is. Adam's going to prison. Your wife's affair is public knowledge and your marriage is finished. What more do you want? I thought about the question. What more did I want? Justice? Revenge? Closure? Or was I just addicted to the process of destruction? I want to make sure they both understand the consequences of what they've done. They understand. Trust me, they understand. After I hung up, I returned to the living room where Leah was still watching the news coverage. "Who was that?" she asked. "Work. They want me to come in early tomorrow to handle a project." "Nick, I need to tell you something." "What?" "The FBI wants to interview me tomorrow about my relationship with Adam and any gifts or money he might have given me." "What are you going to tell them?" "The truth. That I had an affair with him, that he gave me gifts, but that I didn't know the money was stolen." "Do you think he'll believe you?" "I don't know, but it's the truth." I sat down beside her and looked at her directly. "Leah, there's something I need to tell you too." "What?" "I want a divorce. I want you to move out of this house, and I want primary custody of Emma and Sophie." She stared at me like I just slapped her. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. This marriage is over. It was over the moment you decided to sleep with my brother." "But the girls will be fine." "They'll live with me during the week and visit you on weekends. That is, if you're not in prison." "I'm not going to prison. I didn't do anything wrong." "You committed adultery with a federal criminal and accepted gifts bought with stolen money. Even if you're not charged with a crime, your reputation is destroyed and your career is over." "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching my life fall apart." I considered the question honestly. "Yes, I am. You and Adam thought you were so much smarter than me, the dumb construction worker who would never figure out what you were doing. Well, congratulations. You've learned exactly how smart this dumb construction worker can be. You did this. Somehow you orchestrated all of this. I documented your affair and reported Adam's crimes to the appropriate authorities. Everything else was just the natural consequence of your choices." She stood up and walked toward the stairs. "I'm going to bed. We'll talk more about this tomorrow after I've spoken with a lawyer." "There's nothing more to talk about, Leah. It's over." She paused at the bottom of the stairs and looked back at me. "You know what the saddest part of all this is?" "What?" "I actually loved him. Despite everything he's done, despite all the lies and the stealing and the manipulation, I actually loved Adam. And I think, in his own selfish way, he loved me too." "That doesn't make it right." "No, but it makes it real. Which is more than I can say about our marriage." She went upstairs and I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by the wreckage of our life together. Tomorrow the FBI would interview her. Next week, she'd move out. Next month, our divorce would be final. Adam would go to prison. Leah would start over with nothing. And I would have my revenge. So, why didn't it feel like victory? 6 months later, I stood in the parking lot of the federal courthouse, watching Adam Forrester walk out in handcuffs for the last time as a free man. The jury had deliberated for less than 4 hours before finding him guilty on all counts. 22 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole in 15. Jessica stood beside me, professional in her dark suit and satisfied smile. She'd testified as a witness for the prosecution, describing how Adam had manipulated her and stolen her jewelry. Her testimony had been devastating, painting Adam as a predator who used charm and false promises to exploit vulnerable women. "How does it feel?" she asked as we watched the prison transport van disappear around the corner. "Like justice," I said. "Finally." "And your wife?" Leia had been standing on the courthouse steps when the verdict was announced, surrounded by reporters and photographers. The local news had been following the story for months, and she'd become the face of the scandal. The HR manager who'd had an affair with a criminal and accepted gifts bought with stolen money. She hadn't been charged with any crimes, but her life had been destroyed just as effectively as if she'd been convicted. She'd lost her job, her reputation, and most of her friends. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago, and she was now living in a small apartment across town, working as a receptionist at a medical clinic. "She got what she deserved," I said. "Did she?" I looked at Jessica, surprised by the question. "You don't think so?" "I think she got what she earned, but I'm not sure that's the same thing as what she deserved." "What's the difference?" "The difference is that Adam was a criminal who deliberately set out to hurt people. Your wife was just someone who made bad choices and got caught up in something bigger than she understood. She destroyed our marriage. You both destroyed your marriage. Her affair was just the final blow." I wanted to argue with her, but I knew she was right. Laia and I had been growing apart for years before Adam came into the picture. The affair had been a symptom of our problems, not the cause. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Now you keep your promise. You walk away. You take care of your children and you build a new life." "What about you?" "I'm moving back to California. I got a job with a firm in San Francisco that specializes in victims' rights. I want to help people who've been hurt by criminals like Adam." "That sounds perfect for you. What about you? What are your plans?" I thought about the question. For months, my entire life had been focused on destroying Adam and Leia. Now that it was over, I wasn't sure what came next. "I guess I'll figure it out as I go." "You should consider forgiveness for Adam, for yourself, and maybe eventually for your wife." I shook my head. "I don't think I'm capable of that." "You might be surprised. Forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook for what they've done. It's about letting yourself off the hook for carrying the anger." We walked toward our cars in comfortable silence. At the edge of the parking lot, Jessica stopped and turned to face me. "Thank you, Nick, for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for helping me see it through to the end. Just remember what I said about forgiveness. Your daughters are going to need a father who isn't consumed by bitterness." "I'll remember." She got in her car and drove away, leaving me alone in the courthouse parking lot. I sat in my truck for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that was still to come. Emma and Sophie were staying with my parents for the week while I dealt with the trial and its aftermath. Tomorrow I'd pick them up and take them home to our new normal, a house without their mother, a family restructured by divorce and scandal. They'd adjusted better than I'd expected. Emma, at 11, was old enough to understand that her mother had made mistakes, but young enough to still love her unconditionally. Sophie, at 9, mostly just wanted to know when things would go back to normal. I'd tried to explain that things would never go back to the way they were, but that didn't mean they couldn't be good in a different way. My phone rang as I was driving home. Leia's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer. We'd barely spoken since the divorce was finalized, communicating mostly through lawyers and brief exchanges when she picked up the girls for her weekend visits. "Hello, Leia. I saw the verdict on the news. 22 years. Yes, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I'm glad it's over for all of us. It's been over for months. No, it hasn't. Not really. There's been this cloud hanging over everything, waiting for the trial to end and the sentence to be announced. Now we can all move forward." "What do you want, Leia?" "I want to apologize. Not for the affair. I've already apologized for that, and I know it doesn't matter anymore. I want to apologize for the way I treated you during our marriage, for taking you for granted, for making you feel like you weren't good enough, for not appreciating what we had until it was too late. I pulled over to the side of the road and parked. This wasn't a conversation I could have while driving. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've had 6 months to think about what went wrong between us, and I've realized that my affair with Adam wasn't really about Adam at all. It was about feeling important and desired and special, things I should have been feeling in my marriage but wasn't. And that's my fault. It's both of our faults. We stopped trying, Nick. We stopped talking, stopped connecting, stopped being partners. We became roommates who happened to share a bed and a mortgage. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. But it explains it. And maybe if we can understand what went wrong, we can make sure it doesn't happen again with other people. Other people? You're going to date again eventually, maybe even remarry. And I hope when you do, you'll remember what we learned from our mistakes. I sat in my truck listening to my ex-wife apologize for things I'd never expected her to acknowledge, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but something close to it, and understanding that we'd both contributed to the failure of our marriage, even if her betrayal had been the final blow. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. I know it doesn't change anything. I know you'll never forgive me for what I did to our family. But I needed you to know that I understand my part in it. What are you going to do now? I'm going to rebuild my life, find a better job, make new friends, try to become the kind of person Emma and Sophie can be proud of. It's going to take time, but I think I can do it. I think you can, too. Will you do me a favor? What? Don't let what I did make you bitter. Don't let it poison your relationship with the girls, or your ability to trust someone new. You're a good man, Nick. You deserve to be happy. After we hung up, I sat in my truck for another 20 minutes, watching traffic pass and thinking about forgiveness. Jessica had been right. It wasn't about letting Isla off the hook for what she'd done. It was about letting myself off the hook for carrying the anger. I thought about Adam sitting in a federal prison cell, paying the price for his crimes. I thought about Leia starting over in a small apartment, trying to rebuild her reputation and her relationship with our daughters. I thought about Emma and Sophie, who would grow up in a broken home, but with parents who were finally being honest with each other and themselves. And I thought about myself, free for the first time in months from the burden of planning revenge and orchestrating justice, free to focus on being a father, building a career, maybe even finding love again someday. The sun was setting as I drove home to my empty house. Tomorrow, I pick up my daughters and start the next chapter of our lives. It wouldn't be the chapter I'd planned when I married Leia 13 years ago, but it would be ours. And for the first time since this whole ordeal began, that felt like enough. I pulled into my driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the house where I'd lived for 8 years, where I'd raised my daughters, celebrated birthdays and holidays, built a life that I'd thought would last forever. Tomorrow, I'd start building a new life, not one based on revenge or bitterness, but one based on hope and possibility. I got out of my truck and walked toward my front door, leaving the past behind me and stepping into whatever came next.